Hello everyone, today we will do a quick GTNH run. To get started, we build a small shelter with the basic storage and survival stuff. Next we make a new room where we can place our first steam machines. And once we get bigger steam machines, we can also build a couple of blast furnaces. This will allow us to produce the steel required for our low voltage workshop, which can be used to craft an electric blast furnace to make the aluminium for the new MV machines. All of that progression is taking a lot of resources, which we are processing in the basement, where we automated raw mineral sorting and processing. To power all of that, we are using 4 aircraft boilers fueled with charcoal blocks made from the wood produced by a spruce bonsai farm. This setup will be enough for our additional blast furnaces and the new HV machines, which can be used to assemble the parts for a rocket. Now that we have a rocket, we can take off to new far places, such as the moon. Here we can find some rare materials that weren't abundant on Earth, like bauxite and neodymium. But, most importantly, we can now move to the garden dimension, a builder's heaven where there are no hostile creatures and it's always sunny. The first thing we build here is a complete oil refinery, which will yield all sorts of products. After using those for our chemistry industry, we use the leftover to fuel our new factory. With that, we can now power 16 blast furnaces and our new workshop, equipped with all kinds of small machines that will allow us to craft anything we could possibly want, and to quickly process hundreds of items at once. We also have a workshop section with some powerful multi-blocks. The only issue left is to find a way of collecting enough raw materials. To do so, we tried a different approach. We did all sorts of weird rituals until we found a way of gathering materials that is easier than flying into space. We make space rocks fly to us. That way, we can easily collect valuable materials without having to leave our base. To process all of those raw minerals, we built an ore processing plant right next to the meteor crashing site. Next we do some further refinement in our chemical processing plant, and, for those materials that still aren't ready for blast smelting, we have a place where can build longer refinement processing lines, starting from the Platinum Line. However, as you can see, it's not working. And the issue seems to be lack of hydrogen. Since we need a planetary amount, the only solution is to go back to space again. This time the target is the only place with enough hydrogen to satisfy our needs, Jupiter. To get the hydrogen, we build a space station equipped with a planetary gas siphon and start slowly pumping the whole gaseous planet towards our base. With that, our Platinum Line is starting to work again. However, platinum is not the only material that requires processing from a chain of machines. We also had to set up a processing line for monazite to obtain samarium, cerium and other rare earth elements, which we used to build a processing line for purifying naquader. Finally, we also had to build a processing line for netherite. To power all of those new machines, we are using only clean energy, starting from a geothermal plant that produces steam from underground heat. Next to our heat pumping station, we also have a hydroelectric plant built on the slice of river that passes underneath our base. But our main source of energy are 8 wind turbines. Depending on wind strength, those can reach a power output peak of 560 kEU per tick. And, if we fly higher, we can see the start of our compressed solar panel array, which should outgrow our wind farm. Finally, moving to the nether, we are also using some nuclear reactors to power our ancient debris collection process. Those things are needed to build machines capable of withstanding temperatures higher than the sun, such as our new fusion reactor. But one was not enough. So we made another one, and another one, and another one, and then we scale those 1 tier up, and we can use the old fusion reactors to boost our energy production. But the real technological progress is that we can now get into quantum computing. After building our first small quantum computer and a research station, we can start working on wetware circuits, powerful enough to control UHV tier machines. But what we are actually going to want is a new V-crop synthesizer, which can be used to bait one of the best meteorites that can be achieved, rich of all of the rarest minerals that normally don't even spawn in nature. However, While this is a great source of metals that we can't easily obtain by other means, it has two huge downsides. The first one is that summoning this meteor took the life of some sentient circuits. The second issue is that we have to physically dig it, block by block. To fix all those problems and also get a better selection of collected minerals, we can move to our mega apiary. Here we can beekeep some special breeds of bees that produce some high-quality honeycombs from which we can extract all sorts of delicacies, such as electric motors. But there are still some materials we can't obtain easily from bees or meteors, like awakened draconium, required for our next blast furnace upgrade. We could obtain it by gambling on a new species of bee, but since we aren't lobotomizing ourselves by grinding in a closed garden, we will simply catch the first Vega bee rocket passing by. And once we get airdropped onto the new planet, we can quickly proceed into digging a hole to its core, where we will be able to find small amounts of the needed material. With that, we can craft the royal bed required for the mutagen-driven mating process of the drake bee. And as soon as it's ready we can move it to the mega apiary, where it will quickly produce enough honeycombs to upgrade all of our volcanoes. But even with that upgrade, we still struggle keeping up with all of the blast smelting needed, so we opted for a mega blast furnace. The issue is that this giant machine will use a giant amount of energy. To keep up with that, we built a couple of XL plasma turbines. And while those managed to produce enough power, the amount of fuel used became a new issue. At first we tried to fix that by building more fusion reactors, but this solution couldn't really match our consumption, so we designed a more compact solution, a single giant reactor that can match hundreds of the smaller ones. That solution worked really well, until we realized that producing all of that plasma was using an amount of hydrogen bigger than Jupiter. And if the biggest planet of our solar system isn't enough, the only thing left to do is pump fluids from all over the galaxy. But building space stations all over the galaxy is too much of a chore, so we opted for a single giant space elevator in our base, equipped with a super powerful pump capable of suction in gases from the whole universe. But building this pump requires some really strong materials. Leaving aside all of the neutronium and infinity, the real issue lies in the magnetic material required for the inner shaft of a motor powerful enough to spin such pump, 10 GaM. Just to catch a meteor with traces of it, we need an iron thruster jet. But, since this is quite expensive, instead of throwing it away for a dozen of 10 GaM ores, we shall put it on our new improvised mothership to push it to a new galaxy where 10 GaM spawns naturally. And after a long voyage, we got our mothership in the correct area. Now we can prepare a smaller shuttle, which can be used to land on a 10 GaM rich planet, where we quickly build a powerful void miner. With that, we can conclude our space adventure and relocate to our base, where we can start working on the powerful space pumps. And it was then that we run for the first time into the infinite issue of not having enough infinity. To make one ingot of that material, we currently need 11 stacks of infinity catalyst dust, which we are mainly collecting with space drones. However, not only the collection is still too slow even tough we have multiple drones working on it, we are also low on diamonds and nether stars. Not to mention all of the cosmic neutronium required, which will be a hard task even for our mega blast furnaces and freezers running at 100 million ZU per tick each. To fix all of those issues there is only one solution. A dimensionally transcendent plasma forge, or DTPF for the homies. This giant structure will melt pure infinity out of infinity catalyst, completely removing the cost for neutronium and diamonds. But don't be fooled. While the energy cost looks low, it needs some excited dimensionally transcendent fuel. And this innocent bucket of exotic material is a super high energy cost concentrate of a huge collection of nuclear fusion products. To produce enough of this fuel, we had to build a dedicated processing plant, which, of course, was using more energy than we were producing, so we upgraded our power plant. But all of those things running on fusion products started to overwhelm our compact fusion reactors, throttling our whole base. It was clear that we were going to need more and more plasma, and the Mark III reactor technology wasn't going to do it. So we started working on a prototype of fusion reactor capable of achieving perfect overclock. With this structure, we can now quickly craft millions of buckets of plasma, for all of our needs. Which means that we have enough fuel to run a second DTPF. This one will be equipped with infinity coils and run on higher power settings to quickly and cheaply craft all sort of things, like neutronium from iron. But the real game changer is that this machine will be able to craft tesseracts. While the main usage for those is to produce transcendent metal, what we are after is the energized tesseract technology, capable of wirelessly linking machines, making it super easy for our matter manipulator to easily copy-paste our production lines. Building all of that was quite resource intensive. So, after building a water purification plant capable of producing subatomically perfected water, we finally obtained the last ingredient required for the most energy-intensive machine of the modpack, capable of making unlimited DTPF fuel, the dimensionally transcendent plasma mixer. This machine has unlimited mixing power. Or, to better specify, the only limit is our power production. Indeed, as soon as we turn it on, in 5 seconds, it produced 1 day worth of DTPF fuel and also used 2 days worth of energy backup. And that made us realize that we might have some major energy production issue. It was clear that we needed some better way of making energy, no matter how many more plasma turbines we will build. No matter what kind of exotic metal we use for the blades of our turbines. It won't be enough. And that's also because our Mark IV fusion reactor barely keeps up with the plasma production with our current energy conversion rate. Looking at the sky for a solution, we peeked at a fusion reactor which might be big enough. The only issue was figuring out a way of capturing all of that energy. We figured out we could achieve that by enclosing the sun in a sphere of mirrors that will redirect all of its energy to our base. Accomplishing such task was not easy, especially because placing so many mirrors at that scale required a precision which no normal motor could achieve. Luckily, using some tesseracts, we managed to create some 4-dimensional motors which were perfect for the task. And once the Dyson sphere was completed, we managed to produce 1/3 of a trillion EU per tick. Since even superconductors couldn't move that much energy, we had to use laser pipes to focus all of that energy in light form. With that kind of power, we managed to push our DTPFs at the limits of the universe, synthesizing space-time itself. With this revolutionary material we managed to build motors and pistons strong enough to compress things into a black hole. And once we properly stabilized a black hole, we can use its gravitational field to compress whatever we want. Thus we obtained unlimited amounts of superdense materials such as eternal singularities, which we can now use for mundane tasks such as showering or storage. One other usage for all of those singularities is the final tier of coils which will be with us for the rest of the game, eternal coils. With those, we can unlock all of the DTPF recipes, and we shall start by making spacetime at 8 times the speed for 8 times less materials. Meanwhile, we can use our old hypergen DTPFs to passively produce infinity, at the moderate speed of 4 million liters per hour each with a recipe that uses only 1 infinity catalyst for each stack of infinity ingots. However, that was also quickly draining all of our fuel, and the issue was that our fusion reactors couldn't produce the ingredients fast enough. It was obvious that we had to improve our fusion technology once again. So we started working on the final type of fusion coils, and, after the initial examination of the crafting plan, between all of the missing ingredients we noticed that, once again, our Platinum Line is having trouble keeping up. This time, we couldn't pinpoint a specific issue. This gigantic cluster of machines is just too convoluted and slow for our needs. So, after quickly reanalyzing the design of our Platline looking for improvements, we realized we can just scratch all of that and use force to quantum the platinum out of unrefined metal dusts. And there is our new Platline. A single machine that can be speed up by simply tweaking the input power. And now that we are refining platinum at 100 times the speed, we can't help but want to improve our other processing lines. After quickly doing so, we realized that this incredible machine can also replace all of our bacterial vats. After reimagining all of our processing lines, the only thing missing for our new fusion reactor was dragon blood. Now, while hunting dragons is a nice activity to keep your body engaged, it's not a reliable source of dragon blood. Considering our needs, even with the infinite world generation, we would still put this species at risk of extinction. Looking for a solution, we invited some friends over. They then proceeded into summoning a demon who traded its heart for some emeralds. We used that to craft an infinity egg, capable of producing an infinite amount of dragon blood. With that, we finally managed to build our compact fusion reactor Mark V final type. And with all of that fusing power, our plasma fuel production skyrocketed, allowing for a huge expansion of our DTPF cluster. With so many plasma forges, we can now produce enough infinity, space-time and Shirabon to mass-produce quantum circuits, the highest tier of circuit, capable of controlling UXV machinery. And that means that we can now spam wireless energy hatches. Now we can just press Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V and make our base grow exponentially without having to connect any cable. However, an exponential amount of new machines requires an exponential amount of extra energy production. And while building more Dyson spheres doesn't require much effort, crafting all of the parts requires a lot of transcendent metal. Currently, we are blasting that material with the power of 3 Dyson spheres, but it seems to still be far from enough. And it was exactly when every hope was lost to darkness, that a new light brightened our blast smelting area. It was not our fusion reactor blowing up, but a forge sent directly from the gods. And in this gigantic machine we found a module capable of quickly processing all of our transcendental materials. And to show the gods our gratitude, we decided to build the biggest pyramid ever in their honor. To do so, we needed huge amounts of stone, and the best way of gathering it seems to be placing a whole planet inside something called Eye of Harmony. While crafting all of the parts for such marvelous machine isn't too easy, putting everything together is the main issue. Since we have no time to waste, we are going to shove the energy produced by 6 Dyson spheres into our assembly lines to speed up the crafting process. And, after not too much time, we managed to complete our first Eye of Harmony. That machine will take 2 hours to produce 240 million units of stone dust. That sounds like a lot, but, considering we already had 9 billions, it's not. If we truly want to impress the gods, we have to improve our space-time compression technology to the point where our Eye of Harmony is capable of containing the deep dark, thus harnessing more than 1 billion stone dusts at once. However, that won't fix the speed issue, if anything it will make it worse. So, if we want the process to be done in a tolerable amount of time, we also have to improve our time dilation technology. Doing so is no easy task. The first issue we noticed is the amount of infinity required. Luckily, after 8 hours of working towards fully breaching dimensional boundaries and with the help of a transdimensional alignment matrix, our DTPFs achieved full convergence, thus acquiring perfect overclock. That made our infinity production skyrocket to 5 billion liters per hour. But this comes with a huge cost, a lot of plasma fuel. So much that even a full tower of final type fusion reactors couldn't keep up with that. Thanks God, his forge can be equipped with a plasma fabricator module, which was just enough for our needs. With that, we finally managed to build our first Eye of Harmony, which, however, was still too slow. We could speed it up with better time dilation field generators, but those cost dwarf matter, only produced by the Eye of Harmony itself. The only solution left was to overclock the machine, which means 4 times the energy for twice the speed. And that caused, once again, energy issues. This time the scale of the problem is huge. As large as the number of stars in the sky, since we built so many Dyson spheres that there are no more stars to use, there was only one thing left to try, antimatter. After producing a decent amount of that stuff, we can slam it in the slam to quickly charge up our batteries. All was left to do was to figure out the correct balance between antimatter production and eye of harmony overclocking. The correct solution turned out to be that we should just keep building more antimatter sequences until our eye of harmony finally reached the Gallifreyan tier. And, of course, one was not enough. Actually, not even 20 eye of harmony were enough for our future projects. We needed more stone dust, and this approach was too slow. The solution we figured out was to compress an eye of harmony into an astral array fabricator, thus exponentially increasing production. And that reminded us that stone dust is not the only thing we are getting from this microverse. We are indeed getting a lot of raw stellar plasma mixture, which we can use to fuel and empower the gorgeous Forge of the Gods. By increasing the fuel we burn, we can indeed boost the power of its furnaces. But what really matters is that we are showing our devotion to the deities, helping us progress in our path of transcendence. And that reminded us that we should prepare our gift in a proper package. So, after charging up an Reactor battery, we started packaging our stone into an artificial universe storage cell. And only then we realized a fatal misunderstanding. We can't gift the greatest pyramid ever because we are constantly producing more of it. And since our production keeps growing exponentially, any gift would look like a joke compared to what we could do the day after. But after being lost in the labyrinth of our thoughts for a scary amount of time, we finally saw a light at the end of the tunnel. We don't have to make a single package, we can do a constant delivery. But of course, reaching the dimension beyond the stars will require a really strong portal, a Stargate. The issue is that transcendent motors don't have the strength required to carry our gift, while space-time motors don't have the extra-dimensional capability to reach dimensions beyond our comprehension. We needed to design a new kind of motor. This time we started by mixing together the 4 basic substances of reality, obtaining primordial matter. With that and some other rather complicated materials, we create some universium nanites. Then we moved from the nanite forge to the implosion compressor, where we blow those nanites inside some condensed stellar plasma mixture, magneto-hydrodynamically constraining it. That material will be the foundation of our new motors, but we need something to properly mold such impossible fluid, and quantum forcing some eternity out of primordial matter seems to do the trick. But to properly meld everything together, we had to use an implosion compressor and add some advanced technology to contain the new material. And after putting everything together, we finally obtained a motor strong enough for the delivery of the biggest, ever-growing pyramid. All was left to do was to produce enough of those motors, so we had to do several upgrades to our factory. We started by checking if our fusion tower was good enough. Then we added more astral arrays to our eyes of harmony. Next we built more assembly lines. Then we added more astral arrays to our eyes of harmony. More assembly lines. More mixed our antimatter arrays to our eyes of harmony. More alloy, more astral arrays to our eyes of modules to the forge of the more astral arrays to our eyes of harmony. Convergence factor of our DTP. More astral arrays to our eyes of advanced assembly line. Unoptimized astral arrays to our antimatter sequences. And after going through every single side quest we were given, we are finally ready to defeat the final boss. To do so, we first merge all of our eyes of harmony into a single one with 1000 astral arrays. Then we use a draconic reactor configuration that should not be seen by naked mortal eyes to produce enough chaos shards to get a couple of singularity crafting storages, so that we can one-step craft the Stargate. Finally, we use the secret technique of the double matter manipulator to complete the final challenge. And exactly when we thought we were done, we realized that the real value here is not in the giant pile of stone dust, but in the machines we built along the way. So, following the random comments coming from whatever place this gate leads to, we decided to take one extra step and make 10 more Stargates. And after 1 week of pushing our factory at the limits of the computation capacity of the simulation we call reality, we finally managed to complete the task. And with that, I think our factory is now good enough to keep growing on its own. So we can fly away to the next adventure. Bye bye.